So I really wanted to go into this Scream 7 debacle. And as you can see, I'm not much for intros. If you also didn't know, if you're wondering why this random channel was recommended to you, I'm the younger brother of the fine man over that runs that great sports channel, National Sports Entertainment, who will be uploading very shortly. But uh, football season's over. I wanted to go into some stuff because a lot of people, I believe, that believe sports are scripted. This original channel, by the way, was shut down when I started going into things that I guess I shouldn't have been. But anyway, around COVID, I think. But my point is, I'm going to go into this movie. This is not going to be some deep dive that opens everybody's eyes, but it's just something that I find interesting, and I think I'm good at patterns. And when this movie came out, this is the reason I want to. I haven't seen one person come out and say this movie is a failure. Even the people that said it sucks are like, oh yeah, it's still going to be the highest grossing movie. I'm going to say right now, this is going to be one of the lowest grossing Scream films, just because, especially budget the box office. This movie tricked people in the worst way. I'm not gonna lie, they're geniuses, but they're really messed up. So they really tricked people here. Now, let's just say I was able to figure out this movie, enjoy this movie. I didn't have to pay a dime. We'll just say that. But they used this marketing so well. They really had people believing. I imagine if you're watching this video, you know what Scream's about. I'm looking for Stu here. They really had. He's not in here now, but they really had people believing that Stu is going to be in this movie. I have box office, that's why. So if we just go to Scream 7, he's probably in here. Probably won't take. There he goes. So they really had us believing this man was going to be in the movie. And even the cast, they tricked people with a lot of these people. Gooding and Savoy Brown. This is going to have a lot of spoilers, by the way. I'm going to go into why the movie sucked, as well as the box office. And I know it's a lot better when you have editing and you can see the scenes. I just hope you saw the movie because the imagery will be enough. But this movie, in my opinion, is the worst Scream film that they've ever made. This guy, John Campia on YouTube, great. I did a better job than I ever can. You just watch him instead of me, honestly. But if you get bored, you can watch me afterwards. This guy does the best rant ever on why this was just the worst excuse for a movie ever. And I agree with him that a fan could have written a better movie. Now, they use AI a lot in this movie. And again, it could have been used really well. I hope they didn't waste money with this AI, because it was so bad. And at the same time, I can imagine they wasted a lot of money. Now, I want to get to the box office because opening weekend happened and it did about $100 million, and people were rejoicing, especially Scream fans. And I'm going to get into Neve Campbell because Scream's known for being meta. And I might just do a separate video depending on what people want to hear. I like going more into the weeds, but Scream's been known to be centered around Sidney Prescott, which would be Neve Campbell. And I've noticed that in the movies, she's probably the most selfish final girl I've ever seen. I mean, she leaves people to die. Because she doesn't trust people, they get killed. She doesn't care. You really don't see her show emotion when people die. And she's just desensitized to people dying, really. Like, unless the person is like her blood, she can give a fuck, which is fine. Now, in real life, the way these movies have come out, Scream 1 was great. But I've always contended you could have stuck Tori Spelling in that spot. You could have stuck almost anybody in that spot because of the great surrounding cast, because of the perfect writing. And she does a good job. But if anybody watches that movie and tells me she stole the movie, they're crazy. I mean, to prove that, if you watch Scream 2, she does not have chemistry with the friends, with Haley, with Derek, with any of them, really, except the good actors, like Cotton, Mickey. Just like one, she was surrounded with Rose McGowan, with Skeet, Matthew Lillard. So then we get to Scream 3, and she's got scheduling problems, so she can't be in the movie. They even joke about it in the movie. They had to cast a new Sydney. And it does well, about 4x. It's the weakest one as far as budget to box office. I never know why these movies do high. They should just go with like Friday the 13th, right? They do a $2 million budget, they make 10x. These studios start doing 50 million and they barely get 3x. Now they do Scream 3 and it does well, 4x, but Sydney's not in the movie, and this is what bothers me. Not I don't really care, but it's the reason I take umbrage with people saying like she's selfless, Neve Campbell and Sydney Prescott's needed. She's in the movie, and what it does is it makes it where it's two movies, right? So you have like, I'm just try my best to like, show this. You have her right in the middle, and again, Scream 3 is supposed to be about her, so that's fine. But everyone else, like the Angelina, the girl to the far left stole it, but like Sydney doesn't have a word with her. She doesn't have a word with the dude on the far right. She doesn't talk to anybody in the movie. She's really just there to, be there, I guess. She's there with obviously the people, Dewey, Gale, and that's really it. I think the only line she speaks to that's like of the new cast is one line to Angelina, like when she's in the bathroom. So two separate movies going on. It's considered a failure, whatever. We move on to Scream 4, and it's kind of the only one where actually, and this movie failed, again, because I think they're focusing too much on Sydney. And I would imagine Neve Campbell has a lot to do with this, because it just seems to be the case. This is the point where they should have just moved on. Scream 5, if Scream 4 didn't fail, Scream 5 would have moved on with Kirby as the final girl, but they kill her, leave her to die, whatever. They want to keep Sydney going. Maybe Jill was supposed to be the final girl. I'm not sure what they were supposed to do, but again, Sydney doesn't really talk to these like the new characters. Actually, in meta fashion, because I believe this is probably how Neve Campbell is with the cast, based off of the interactions I've seen with these interviews. She has she's basically forced to like go into a class and talk to the kids, about what may happen. So she does that, right? And that's fine. The movie sucks, I thought it was alright, but I mean, as far as box office, it's the worst one. And again, I think it's because like everyone like phoned it in, they have like two different movies going on. They got Sydney returning, and then they got the Jill saga, and then again, everybody else becomes fodder. Unlike the first movie, where like by the end of the movie, in 1 and 2, like the reveal mattered, even the killers, because they had established them. They had established the people that they kill off. By this movie, it's just like, well, people only care about Sydney. This is like, this misconception, in my opinion. I really feel like they keep making these movies with the assumption that people watch Scream for her and not for Ghostface. So anyway, not such a good movie. We move on to 5, and again, like this is in my opinion, the more I watch it, I think it's the best sequel, to be quite honest, because they do the best job of developing new characters where you kind of care if they die, and then they get the new hopeful final girls, right? I think Tara should have just been the final girl. You watch the opening scene to this movie, it's the best since Drew Barrymore. Like if you didn't watch the first and you just watched this, or if you just stuck her instead of Drew Barrymore, that movie would have just been almost as good. Obviously, Drew Barrymore is better. My point is, she stole it. She killed it. And then I thought she did a great job in the movie. I thought Sam was kind of weak. I thought Tara really carried Sam. I thought Richie carried Sam. And Sydney was good, but this shows to the character's selfishness too. Like not just, again, I think Neve Campbell's selfish. She wanted more money again after this movie. They do the best without her, whatever. But anyway, I'll get into that. So in this movie, it's about Tara and Sam. Of course, Sydney's the main character. They still have her front and center, which is fine. They say Scream's about Sydney. I disagree. But anyway, Dewey dies. He really didn't want to, but he thought it was best for the franchise. He did the honorable thing. And I think they do a great job. But when this movie ends, Sam has really established her character. Like she did more in this movie, in my opinion, like just to show personality, than Sydney has done in all of her collective. I think she's very vanilla, and maybe that's why she's a good final girl, because she's so safe. But even her lines feel forced, like in all these things. Whereas Tara, Sam, they're just feisty. Like they were fun in this movie, and they didn't hesitate, which I thought was really cool. So this movie was like probably the best since like the originals as far as box office, because I like to go budget. If a movie uses a $20 million budget and does say 150, another movie uses double that budget and pulls in 165, I'm gonna give the edge to the movie that used half the budget. So we're gonna move on to 6, and that's kind of the case here. Now they did, I'd say, a good bit better. They pulled in like 30 million more, but their budget was like 18 million, or something like that. Now this one I thought was good. I will admit I thought 5 is better, so I'm not just being biased against Neve Campbell. I think 6 made the mistake that 7 makes, where they just, and we're gonna go into 7, trust me, where they just kind of assume, okay, we only care about the core 4 here, maybe Kirby and Gale, and nobody, like, they're the only ones even on this damn picture. So like it shows you how much. In the other ones there was like this mystery factor, right? Because you see, like in the first one, I don't even know if Sydney is on the picture, I think, but you see all the other characters that Billy and all the ones that could be the killer. Here they just show you like the same people, and the ones you can barely see, the little blips, are either the killers or the ones that wind up dying. So there's different. That's not the only poster. There's other ones, but like they're really not like hiding the fact that they don't give a shit about developing the other characters. So I thought this movie sucked. I think it's probably probably the second or third worst, probably the second worst in the entire franchise. But it did amazing in the box office. You can't argue with the box office, right? So let's go to the box office real quick. Just because I'm gonna go into Scream 7 on its own. So I love AI now because you can just like type in a bunch of like shit like this and it'll just like perfectly fix it for you. So anyway, we're gonna look into this now. So we're back at the box office. So Scream 6 did phenomenal. I mean, they're saying it's the best, and I get different numbers. Apparently Scream 1's the best. These numbers always change, by the way. I think Scream 1 has to be the best just because it's showing the highest numbers. And even if just say it didn't do as well as Scream 2 or one of these others, you look at the budget, it's pretty impressive. So anyway, again, as we said, Scream 4 didn't do good. Scream 5, I think, did good. Scream 6 increases the budget, does significantly better. So it's not like they barely did better. Again, about 30 million more on about a 11, $12 million budget, whatever. Fine. And again, I'm not going to argue with the numbers. With 7, I did argue with the numbers, and I'm going to tell you why. This opened to 100 million. Okay. Now you can see the budget's 45. The marketing's usually about the same. So we're looking at about 90. And you can do the same for all these movies. This one was heavily marketed. They might have spent more on marketing than they did on the movie, just because, like, the main scenes from the movie that they spent, like, I imagine a lot of the like, burning down houses, whatever, that they spent AI stuff, that they spent a lot of their production money on, that's in the marketing. So, like, I would imagine they spent a lot of money on marketing, So anyway, 45, whatever. We don't really count marketing, It would be around 90, but you just count the 45, and you really want a 4x because Scream 3 did not, it barely 4x'd and it was considered a failure. Scream 2 2x'd, but it didn't 3x, considered horrible. All the other ones kind of 5x'd. I don't think Scream 4 is going to 4x or Scream 7 is going to 4x. Now, when this movie came out, even people that were against it, except John Campea, that guy, he really stuck to his word. They were saying like, oh, it's still, it was watchable, it wasn't that bad. And I know why they were saying it, because the box office numbers. Those same people that were hedging, those Zach Cherry people, I guarantee you they're going to come out now, especially that one dude, freaking that Real Shift dude. He was really, really, like on a narrow line, just being honest. And and we're going to get into the whole Scream 7 fiasco. Dude made it political, fine. And so I haven't seen one person give an honest review of this movie. Like, hey, it sucks. And the box office is not an indicator, because it's not. And I know that sounds kind of contradictory because I'm saying how it's dropped off, and that's what I'm going into now. But just looking at like the opening weekend, or even if the movie winds up doing amazing, which it won't, it's not an indicator. But anyway, let's look at the drop off for this movie, because this is where it gets interesting. So we'll just look at the box office first. So we got 100 million. Looking at the tweets might be better. Just the news in general. It did 100 million. We'll go into this won't probably just be a basic on a 45. So like, okay, they already doubled their budget. This is amazing. Like it's in this awesome company because it did $1 billion, and it's just showing how good it is. So early projections estimated 50-60. It doubled that, and it's saying it's strongest opening, on track to be the highest grossing in franchise history. The numbers were over 200 where they thought it was going to be. And here we are now with it's actually 82%. So let's actually go to it. Well, we'll read this first. So it's saying Scream 7 is also trudging along, having recently hit a 200 million global tally. Oh, okay. I was going to say, no, it didn't. Wuthering Heights. Okay. Let's start the 150. Hoppers. Yeah, Hoppers is going to finish better. Here we go. So 74% drop off, the worst ever, even since 6, which also sucked, like I said. I feel like I have a good read for these movies because the reviews say one thing, the critics say one thing, these online people say one thing. Like, my order literally lines up with, like, the box office drop off. So I line up with the people. So I guess this is the channel of the people because when I say a movie sucks, like, the numbers back it up, I think 6 and 7 were by far the worst. I'll give you my ranking and we'll see what you guys think. So anyway, and we're going to go into deeper stuff. There's a reason my channel is named as such. As you know, I don't just go into the shit they want us to go into, but this is just something that's been on my mind, something I wanted to rant about. So they're just going on about how great this movie is. Now, this is where it gets interesting. I went to this for Sound of Freedom, which we'll get into, by the way. A movie that they did everything to try and shut down. Very political, that one. The movie wasn't, but the tactics were. So this movie opened to again 100 million worldwide. It did 30 million on the opening, and then you can see. So this is just domestic. About 63 million on the opening weekend, right? 63.3, something like that. Probably 66.6 if I had to guess. But anyway, then you see, okay, the weekday it drops off. Following weekend, it's getting weekday numbers, right? I imagine it did like 3.5, 4 million on Saturday, and it's not going to do much Sunday. This movie is going to finish around 150 to 160, in my opinion. And this is where it gets really interesting. This is where the boycott's going to happen. So first there was a boycott because, and by the way, I never am one to give a crap when a liberal gets fired for speaking their opinion, because in my opinion, it's happened the other way way too many times. So when one of these liberals decides, well, I'm untouchable, and says something and they get fired, I usually don't care. And in this case, I disagreed with the firing because it was just an opinion, but I also didn't care. But this notion, because 6 and 7 were great, honestly, not great. I saw 5 and 6. 5 and 6 were fine, is what I meant to say. They were better than 4 in my opinion. Well, at least as a collective. I still think 6 on its own is probably worse. But box office did better. They told a story, and at least going into 7, you had a few questions. You had characters you might have cared about, all these different things, right? So here's the notion. They fired Melissa Barrera and they brought back the great Neve Campbell. Now again, 6 had just been the best ever. So if 6 sucked as far as the box office, this narrative makes a lot of sense, right? But as far as most people liked 6, I didn't, but most people liked 6, and the box office showed that it was good too. So now they're acting like, wow, well, we got rid of Melissa Barrera, we got rid of that problem, and they're acting like Jenna Ortega's not a draw, Kirby's not in it, Hayden Panettiere's not in it, probably because Neve Campbell didn't want anyone else that could have any personality. And if you don't believe me, watch the movie and watch the twins. The Martin, the Meeks twins. It's ridiculous. But anyway, so it's like, okay, we have to beg to get Sydney back. She didn't think that this whatever was offered to her in Scream 6 was enough. So now they went and gave her a ton of money and basically complete creative freedom to run this franchise, which she has, because you can tell, because it's the worst movie I've seen in time. Like, there are people saying it's the worst movie ever. I wouldn't go that far, but I might say it's the worst horror movie ever, especially when you throw in the names that are in this movie. Well, outside of a few, they suck, but just the legacy behind it. $1 billion franchise, I don't think would put on a movie this bad. For a while, I really thought it was like they do stab inside this movie. I really thought it was like going to be a stab movie that turned out to be a Scream movie because it seemed like a fan wrote it. It was horrible. I don't know if one video can cover just how horrible the movie was. So anyway, this misconception that was the problem. So anyway, they're like, okay, we've been vindicated, right? Because we brought Neve Campbell back, and it's going to be the best ever, and we're going to do 200 million, whatever, and Neve Campbell saved the franchise. No, people came because they thought Matthew Lillard was going to be in the movie, and he was. People came because they thought it was going to be a good movie, and it wound up being a horrible movie, completely centered around the character of Sydney, her more vanilla daughter, and I can't see how anybody would want to watch 8. And I said this. I said, even if this movie does amazing, nobody's going to watch 8. Because there's outside of, even if they try marketing, like this one's going to be in it, that one's going to be in it, they already tricked people with that like 2 times in a row. This time really bad. And then in the movie themselves, they even go into like how you're a fool if you thought Stu was alive. Which dumb theory. As far as like, not a dumb theory, but they really like, it's a fan theory and they put it into the movie. Oh yeah, so I talked about 82%. So this movie, I believe the Friday drop is actually 82%, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they dropped 82.9, almost 83%. And that's not going to just U-turn. That's people telling their friends, yeah, let's not watch that. Because people like these horror movies. I like horror movies. I like them a lot. They return. They watch them again, things like that. They're very loyal. So I expected about 35%, maybe 30% retention, just because I knew it was not going to be 30, 40%. Like they were, saying, okay, that's good enough. I figured, I don't know. I thought maybe 30%, but I didn't see 40 like they were saying. A quarter was kind of my like ceiling. I'm like, okay, maybe like that would be crazy, but like I can see it. But right now it's at 18%, 17. And I'm not shocked, to be quite honest. So this movie sucked for a lot of reasons. Neve Campbell was a producer in the movie. She was the lead in the movie. Her daughter was basically just her. Like everything her daughter did was Neve Campbell telling her what to do. It was Sydney telling her what to do. The husband was, the only thing was the husband wasn't a complete simp. I was really waiting for the husband to be like, please save us. I don't know what to do. And her like saving the day, which kind of happens. But he's actually a badass in the movie, so kudos there, because it wasn't like 3 where they made like which they always do with Sydney, even in 5, when they call her, when Dewey calls her, or I think Gail talks to her. They're like, oh, so how's Mark and the kids? And this guy's a policeman, by the way. She's like, oh, I got them to safety. I made sure they're safe, or some bullshit, like some just final bullshit, or girl bullshit, whatever. But in this movie, that guy's actually pretty good. Like he's actually protecting Sydney, which is like the only thing that wasn't like completely PC. But goodness gracious, so the ending basically just winds up, again, it's all about Sydney. Like, so the killers basically, and this has been explained in nauseum, but kill Sydney because she wasn't in the last movie, and it's absolutely ridiculous. And again, Neve Campbell wrote this movie. No, she didn't write it. I can't say that. She had producer credits, and I just feel like almost like Hulk Hogan in wrestling. She had a hand in this movie. Like this script was not like she's probably put her big John Hancock on that script. It would not have been passed without her, especially after the leverage, because the idea was they needed her back so much, right? So, and Kevin Williamson loves her, so whatever script was written was probably mostly like her idea, I would imagine. So this horrible script gets written about these one super fan, maybe 2 super fans, I don't know. They don't really explain the characters that much. One of the ghost faces that dies, we just get his name. We don't even know who the guy is. This movie's that bad, like at establishing anybody except Sydney and her daughter. And yeah, it's like this movie is just like ridiculous. So the one ghost face killer just basically she's going on to say how Yeah, you weren't in New York when I needed you for the last stabbing, and I because of that I had to basically kill even though you don't care about these people, kill these people that you should care about, and and your daughter, who the only one that you actually do care about, is gonna watch you die, right? Which is just stupid, but okay, fine. And then of course like they do their stupid monologue, and then Sydney just like shoots the guy in the head and kills the girl. But like this movie was so fucking bad. Like I don't want to go into the movie. It's that bad. I can do a separate video for sure. But I would just say watch John Campea. That guy fucking nailed it. But my point is, Cody Leach did a pretty good job too. He was pretty honest, and a few others were. But this guy came out of the theaters, saw the box office was great, and was like, "This movie still sucks." So I appreciate that. But my point is, yeah, this movie's gonna finish at like 150, and I'm curious who they're going to blame, because this is what happened now. We had a boycott. So when liberals boycott something, it never works. Like if a liberal boycotts something, it's going to be successful. So like if I start a business, the number one thing I want to do is piss off liberals and hope they boycott me. And I really think a lot of people watch this movie just because of the boycott. What they didn't realize was like the queen of liberals is the one behind the movie, Neve Campbell. So, and a lot of fans just watch the movie. But when a movie sucks this bad, no boycott. So liberals boycotted it. I think a lot of people on the other end just watched it, just like the whole Goya thing. You can look into Goya if you don't know what that is. And it worked, and the marketing worked. And then people saw like the worst movie they've ever seen, got felt robbed, and now we're gonna see it finish where it should, like probably like the third or fourth, highest grossing. And probably not even that. It's not gonna be higher than 1, 2, or 6 or 3. It'll probably maybe just past 5. So yeah, it's not gonna do good. And then they just completely cooked 8, in my opinion, outside of admitting Sydney needs to go. And Neve Campbell needs to go. She needs to do the honorable thing and die for the franchise. Like, I'm a wrestling guy. So, like, when this old wrestler is, like, on his way out, he doesn't, like, destroy a new guy and leave. Because then the new guy's just done. He puts the new guy over, Kind of like Dewey did, right? He kind of put those ghost faces over. He gave them some credibility. They even talk about it in the movie, how it gave him stakes. So I think Sydney and Neve Campbell needs to do the honorable thing and die for if it's going to be Tatum, this new character, Isabella May. If they give her a chance with these two characters, with Chad and Mindy, and they're somehow able to get Jenna Ortega back because she didn't really have a bad falling out, I guarantee you that movie would be the greatest producing sequel since probably the maybe ever. It might be their greatest box office hit ever, just because of how good 6 did, with horrible writing, with weak characters. So I'm curious what they do with 8. I'm hoping that Neve Campbell does the honorable thing and makes a noble exit, because I think she's hogged this franchise for far too long. I mean, you look at like Saw, and if you take Tobin Bell out of that franchise, it's not the same, right? You can tell when you watch Spiral. But this movie's much different. If you watch the TV series, the reviews are amazing because it's the same idea. It's a very easy idea. But yeah, more to my point, for basically the second half of this movie, so they bring in, this is how stupid this movie is. Sydney's chasing the Ghostface guy into the street. Gail pulls up in a fucking Scooby-Doo van and just runs over and kills the killer. Not even knowing what's going on. Because afterwards she goes up to Sydney and she's like, oh wow, what a coincidence. So they kill this guy. Random dude that Sydney saw in a coffee shop for like 6 seconds. And then Mindy and Chad get out. And I'm thinking, wow, this movie might actually be good now. Because Chad, that dude, Mason Gooding, that guy can say 3 words. And he just makes the movie fun. I don't know what it is. I don't know. The charisma. He's just really, really good. I actually think he's better than Matthew Lillard, to be quite honest. Like, he's really entertaining. But anyway. So him and Mindy are great in the movie, I think. But it's like they couldn't have any personality. So like they're off to the side, again, not at all conversing with Sydney. She's just doing her own thing. Her only lines are with her husband, her daughter, and Gail. Like, in Ghostface, of course. I think she has like a line or two with the boyfriend, but it's just ridiculous. So the twins like have a couple funny one-liners, get stabbed like barely. It's not like ones like where like the last couple movies. And then it was like they get locked because like the filming was so bad. It's like they got locked in a broom closet for the second half of this movie. Like I'm waiting for them to show up to the point where I thought the movie wanted me to think they were the killers. It was that bad. So I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I genuinely think. And 6, I noticed Tara seemed to be toned down a lot. Like, uh, and I think that was more to balance out Sam, to be fair. Whereas 5, she killed it. And then they didn't even talk about 6, which is fine in this movie. They acted like it just didn't exist. But except a million times referring to how Sydney was missed without actually talking about the other characters, which is fine. But just this whole movie being centered around this one person just feels so egomaniacal. Even if it wasn't her idea, even if Williamson's like, this is my idea for the script, I feel like anybody without a delusional ego would be like, no, this isn't going to work. Every other character is looking like crap because of me. I'm the only one that's really being shown here. You know, I should have grandkids, and I probably shouldn't be the final girl anymore. And it's nothing personal. It's just how it is. Like I feel like Jamie Lee Curtis understood that. Like, and that's why she's like, just kill me off. And then of course, you know, money talks. Whatever happens, she comes back. But like, yeah, I don't understand what they're doing here. But I'm very, very, I don't want to say happy, but I'm glad I'm not crazy. That like I'm seeing all these people saying how great this movie was on YouTube and stuff. A few said it was bad, but like, oh yeah, it wasn't terrible. It's not one of the worst. You don't get a drop off like this for no reason. You get drop offs like this when movies suck. Okay, so I am curious to see what these Zach Cherry folks and all these other ones come out and say. You know, the ones that are supposed to be down the middle. That real shift guy, he's just gonna run with it because he doubles down on shit. So his whole thing was like, people are simping over Jenna Ortega and Melissa Barrera, and that's the only reasons people watched 5 and 6, even though every other movie was fine without them. Melissa Barrera gets fired. He like thinks Neve Campbell is like the greatest actress of all time. This dude. So people like that, they're just gonna double down, and then they're probably gonna make up some shit about how like it's a reverse boycott now. Now people aren't watching it because blah yada yada. No, people aren't watching it because the movie absolutely sucked. It was trash. And if someone's reviewing a movie, they should be honest. The movie sucked, and that's why we're seeing this drop off. I'm wondering if now he's going to flip again and go back, you know, knowing that guy. But, you know, that Jack Cherry, that guy, I know people go to him for these reviews, already saying how it wasn't that bad and it was pretty good. That's only because he gave an honest review about Scream 6, and he couldn't take the criticism. And it's unfortunate because his review was very honest. The movie wasn't that good. He said it. A bunch of fans that just like to get mad, you know, told him they didn't like him. He was ugly, this, that, and the other. And now he's like afraid. So he's like, he's not saying the truth when there's not one thing about this objectively. There's not one thing. The character establishment, the opening, the reveal, the score. There's not one thing about this, the way the movie was shot, about this movie that you can say is better than 6. You know, he thought 6 wasn't good, and now it's like 7's great. So I don't really pay attention to these online people. I think they're paid, if I'm being honest, because more people are watching them than you know, reading online and stuff. So anyway, this movie's gonna bomb. I thought I'd make it my first video just because a lot of people are talking about it, but no one's talking about like the weeds of it all and why the movie's failing. And you know, again, the theaters take half of the money. So between the production, the budget, all that, Nev's getting producer credits, and the fact that they just completely ruined any shot of an 8 without having to completely make a new movie now. I'm curious to see what they do going forward. I'm also curious to see the drop off. I'm curious to see if it just completely plummets and doesn't even hit 150. I think it'll hit 150. It'd be almost impossible for it not to. After this weekend, it's going to be around 130, at least over 130. But or at least it should be. But yeah, they got still, you know, 4 more weeks after this. But you know, when you're only doing, because it's going to be 2-3 million a day, it's not enough to even put it past Scream 6. So I'm really curious what they do. I'm going to be going into like whatever you guys want me to be honest. Actual documentary type movies like They Live, things of that nature. I watched that movie a few times. I saw it earlier today, actually. And, beyond the literal things you see in the movie, it's very, very relevant to today. And there's movies out there that are very interesting. They put everything in their movies. You watch the cartoons, you watch the Disney movies. There's a lot of subliminal things that they put in there for a reason. I just wanted to go into just a basic, bare bones, why this movie sucked, why it's going to completely tank at the box office despite its amazing opening weekend that they was only because of marketing. And I'm curious other people's opinion because I'm seeing a lot of people that are finding good things about this movie. And from beginning, and I hear a lot of people saying it was great until the end. And I'm like, to me, the reveal sucked. So I'm like, to me, the movie sucked until the reveal. And then it really sucked. But other people are like, it was great until the reveal. And I'm like, I don't know how. A bunch of nobodies that I can't remember their names died. Sydney did a bunch of stupid things. Gail was worse than any other movie. The opening had nothing to do with the movie. Like, the writing made no sense. Like, but whatever. People liked it until even the people that loved it admit the reveal was pretty garbage. So, yeah, I'm curious what they do with Scream 8. And we'll see what happens here. Maybe nobody watches this. I don't fucking know. I made this channel a while ago. I got shut down because I went into things that I guess YouTube didn't like. So that's why my other channel is the one I made for the sports. I continued it, and I'm going to continue that. We're going to go into basketball, the finals. My brother's going to cover all that. But I figured I would go into this because just a channel sitting there with nothing to do. And I think going into, especially a lot of these people I think are going to start going down, to be quite honest. I'll say Neve Campbell was in those Epstein documents quite a few times. There's a lot of people in there for a lot of different reasons. So just their name being in it really doesn't mean anything. But things about like him and Val Kilmer was in there too. I was reading a document about Val Kilmer reaching out to his friends, and Epstein was the main guy, and he wanted to sell his ranch to them. And Neve Campbell was in there. I thought that was interesting. So could be one of the reasons that she wanted to leave the country if a particular guy got in. So I'm curious to see, just going forward, if we start seeing like the downfall of Hollywood, because if Scream's gonna fall like this, then no movie is safe in my opinion. Maybe there's Marvel movies and stuff, but this has such a scary cult following. For it to just drop off that bad, for people to not give a shit, just tells me that Hollywood is dead, and it's been dead for a while. And yeah, we'll see what happens. I know this wasn't the most like earth-shattering video, but I really just wanted to cover. Everyone's covered, like the people that have covered why it sucks. They've covered it in detail. So me telling you scene by scene, bit by bit, isn't going to do anything. The movie sucked. The producer sucked. Williamson needs to stop directing. He seems like a doormat, if I'm being honest, because like he was a writer in the last one, and it sucked. And he was like, oh well, it was out of my hands. And in this one, he's the director, and it sucks. And they're giving him the benefit of the doubt, like, well, there were other writers that took over. It's like, okay, if you're gonna blame everybody but yourself, then just do your job or get out, right? So I'm not sure what happened here. I wouldn't be surprised if they had AI write the damn script, because Scream does that. Like when 5 and 6 were met with bad reviews, they were like, see, we're right. The killer was the killers were toxic fans, and so are you guys. You're like the killers. So they use their horrible writing, and then they project that onto the audience. So 7, they use AI in like the worst way possible. I wouldn't be surprised if they used AI to write the script, and then be like, see, writers, you went on that strike, we didn't need you, or like, that's how like tone deaf I feel like these studios have gotten. But anyway, I actually, that's wrong, because AI would have written a better script than this. But yeah, just absolutely horrible. Curious to see how horrible it does, and I'm more curious to see the PR spin on this, and if they finally admit that just keeping someone that does not belong in a franchise and forcing them into it, and making just look at a picture tells like 1,000 words. If you take the pictures of all these fuckers and like put them over Sid's face, she's like her picture is bigger than all of them combined, except Cox and her daughter. Like, it just shows you how like trivial and dispensable these fuckers are. So I don't know. Uh, Maybe it's just me, but it feels like with every movie I see the selfishness of this actress Neve Campbell, and then you see the interviews and everyone freaking it's crazy, and that's why I want to get into They Live and these other the Truman Show's another one, but just the fakeness, and we know these people are fake, but just the extent of it, I guess. So I wanted to cover mostly why this movie sucked, predict that it's probably going to be like the fifth highest grossing movie in the franchise, and predict that they're going to make some crazy changes for 8. If they don't, it's probably going to be worse than 4. So hopefully this was good. Hopefully people enjoyed it, because I personally was looking for some people to be honest about this damn movie. I found like one guy, and I'm like, well, let me try and be honest about it. See if people get mad at me because they thought this movie was great and they think I'm just attacking the movie and the actress. And it's not just Neve, but she is the one who has like a stranglehold over this movie. And or if people agree and they think this movie was just garbage, and if you, I know it's cliche, but it's true because I really don't know. I like watching movies for the first time and finding subliminal shit. I do it. I annoy people with it because what I do is I'll watch a movie and someone will be like, let's watch this movie. And like we're like 8 seconds in and I'll pause it and be like, wait a minute, like what's this? And it's not like in a tinfoil hat kind of way. I'll find actual things that people miss. So yeah, if there's a movie that like ever stuck out to you that you're like, this movie feels like it's telling me something, please post it in the comments. Let me know. I'll watch the movie if I haven't seen it already, or watch it for, an extra time. And some are really really interesting as far as they'll tell you some subliminal things. The movie Sausage Party. Very, I think with the foods that are the animate foods. Like there's weird shit. Like if you think about how like the people die, like they get them with like pixie sticks and fountain, like they get them with sugar. There's a lot of subliminal stuff in that movie. So like it's not just They Live and The Matrix. It's every movie. So yeah, if you guys have ever seen like a movie and you're like, man, I'd really like an interpretation on this. I'm very good at pattern finding. I would like to believe, and seeing shit that don't make sense or stuff that they kind of want us to see but maybe not. Obviously, The Simpsons is a great example, stuff like that. But yeah, like They Live is one that just jumps out because it's so darn obvious. And yeah, I would like to just kind of see, what they put in these movies, because I've seen so many of them, but it's kind of pointless if people don't care. So, curious your guys' opinion. Let me know what movies that you've seen some stuff in that's kind of odd. This isn't one of those movies, by the way. There's really, outside of the political shit, with the boycott and Neve Campbell and all that shit, this isn't one of those movies where you're going to see the world differently. So I did start with like a movie that might not be one that I'm typically going to be covering going forward, but we'll cover more of the movies too. We'll cover whatever you guys want, but it's more about just media in general. But I thought this was a good start because it just shows how people are brainwashed. Everyone thought it was this amazing movie going to stomp everything. Now the freaking box office hits. Between that and the reviews, these dishonest people are suddenly going to come out and admit that it sucked. Or they're going to try and double down and look like idiots. But anyway, yeah, let me know if there's particular movies that you're like, this movie feels like it's really... People talk about Fight Club. I think that one's more of like self-realization. It's not like the guy's finding out anything new about the world. He's finding out that he had no confidence. But whatever the movie is, just let me know. I find that stuff interesting. And right now, there's not much we can do. We could find out everything. We could read all the Epstein files and find out everything in the world. Not much to do with it, but if we could find out some of the secret shit that they've been hiding in plain sight, and it's again not just in movies, then I think just a good way to know what's going on. Stuff that people that we might look at will look at a lot differently. So I hope this wasn't too long-winded. I just been wanting to cover this in general, and I hope you guys have a good morning.